Welcome to the Building Web3 Podcast. Today I have my good friend Emily. She is the CMO at Hype. And I'm really excited to have her on because I've been very much enjoying her Twitter posting all about marketing. So real quick, Emily, how did you get into marketing and this crypto world?
Hey, Jax, thanks so much for having me. So I've been a marketer for 8 or 9 years now. I first got into marketing by starting my own dropshipping store on Shopify. This was back in 2016. Quickly learned, okay, I need to know SEO, email marketing, positioning, copy, paid ads. After that first stint, I ended up working at my first agency. And alongside of this, I've also been investing in crypto. I lost all my Bitcoin early on, but I first got into Bitcoin around 2016. I learned about it in college back when it was $900 and remember thinking, okay, it's way too expensive. And I didn't buy in until it was $3,000 or $4,000. I built my whole career in marketing and I moved away from the Shopify store more into performance marketing. And that gave me a lot of experience with e-commerce, SaaS. I did everything from enterprise to local businesses to online businesses of every size. And it wasn't until 3 years ago in 2021, back when DeFi Summer was popping off, where I saw Hype was hiring. And Hype is a crypto native marketing agency. And I decided, okay, let me combine both my marketing background with crypto and this side hobby. And I've been in this crazy space ever since.
Yeah, and talk to us a little bit about, because you've done like the internet money route and where you've gone like agencies, you've done dropshipping stores, you probably tried a few other things. Talk to us a little bit about like some of the challenges you see specifically in crypto marketing and how it kind of compares to traditional marketing.
Well, first, I really like to explain the nuance of crypto and Web3 because I think we often use this label so differently. Depending on who you are, also on which channel. For example, on LinkedIn, it seems like they use blockchain and Web3 a lot more. On Twitter, X, it's crypto. And oftentimes I get asked a lot, what do I think about Web3 marketing versus Web2? And to me, marketing always has its fundamentals that never change. But let's specifically go into what crypto marketing even means. So when I say Hype is a crypto native marketing agency, we primarily work with companies that have blockchain tech integrated. And to dive even deeper, we do a lot of infra. So things like, data availability layers is a thing that's happening right now. Layer twos, layer ones, monolithic blockchains. That's a lot of the ecosystem marketing we've done. Protocols that could be DeFi apps, lending, swaps, perp dexes. It goes on and on. There's also a new subset of crypto, which is more consumer facing. I think on crypto Twitter or X, we call this consumer apps or consumer crypto. That's essentially like social that has some type of blockchain component or anything that has a direct utility to the consumer right away. So I think the fact that there's so many different labels is already one nuance to call out. And a huge difference with crypto marketing is the audience is a lot smaller because the technology and the products that are available are not really products that I might share with my mom or my friends outside of the space, which means that the TAM and the audience is really small. A lot of it is early product market fit or pre-product market fit, I mean. So the way you position it and how you market it to this very small audience is different. The fundamentals are the same, but there is certain factors like speculation and also targeting early adopters in tech that makes it a little bit different than the work I've done in e-commerce or consumer goods.
Yeah, so let's play a quick game because I always find this to be revelatory. Talk to us a little bit about some of the marketing channels that you think are effective. So I'm just going to call out some marketing channels and you're going to tell me overrated or underrated for Web3 specifically. Newsletters.
Okay. Can we take a step back though? So when you say
Sure.
Web3, do you mean Web3 ecosystems like blockchains? Do you mean games built with Web3? Because that's where that nuance varies.
That's quite interesting. I view it, so I mostly work with B2B infrastructure companies.
Okay.
So we don't really market too much to consumers, but I know you were posting the other day a lot about like Instagram and meta ads. And I'm like, well, that doesn't really apply to me all that much. That seems mostly to be consumer people. So it's a very interesting thing. We do not have a core ICP. I would just say, hey, do you think this is an effective marketing channel given this? But I think your response is going to be like, well, it depends, which doesn't always make for great video. But
Okay, let's try. And then I will say I will play and I'll say like underrated or overrated, but I might add some color to it.
no,
Does that sound
absolutely
good?
add some color. Be like, hey, I
Okay.
think for consumers, meta ads, yes. For B2B, no.
Okay, let's go.
All right, overrated, underrated. Email newsletters.
Underrated for most. If it's too technical, probably not the way to go.
So if it's too technical, so we would say like, well, I will be calling out some of my friends here. Would we say like, let's say a newsletter like the roll up that goes deep into data availability or goes deep into like the differences in like data sharding? We would say that's good for a B2B consumer, bad necessarily for a retail user.
So the roll up is a unique example because they're a content brand, right? I really love the work they're doing as well because they are highlighting all of these technical products via content in different forms, long form, short form videos, social. I think I'm more thinking, yeah, it's hard actually because my brain is going through all the different categories and subcategories, thinking about what would fit and not fit. So maybe I can also add a bit more color here on it depends. Yeah, it does depend. It
It does
depends on who
depend. I
you're.
mean, it could be the difference between Milk Road and the roll up.
Yeah, and depends also on who you're targeting. Like, is it developers that you're speaking to? And how is your solution comparative to other solutions they might be using? Do those solutions have a newsletter? I think oftentimes picking channels is thinking about what are the people that you're trying to target, what are they currently seeing, and how do you stand out compared to whatever media content, time spent online? How do you stand out against that?
Yeah, it's quite interesting. I played this game with the CGO at Shardium, and they talked about how initially she was very bearish on newsletters, but Consensus and many other companies had used it quite effectively to like re-engage their audience. One thing I noticed in crypto land is I'll go to so many companies, mostly B2B space, because that's where I operate. They'll have a newsletter, but it's like sign up for alpha. And it's like no lead magnet, no nothing, like no
Yeah.
educational email course, which I always find to be like, I don't know if people are just neglecting that for a reason or they just don't see much of an ROI there.
I mean, content as a whole, it takes so much resourcing, right? Because it's not just one thing to say like, hey, start posting more on Twitter or start posting more on LinkedIn, but there's also intentionality of what should you be posting and the quality behind it. So let's talk about Roll Up, for example. I think Andy does an amazing job making really quality content and getting really great guests. And he's not just saying, oh, let me start a podcast. I think he has a very clear USP. And a very clear sell on what he's doing. So I think also with Web2 or e-commerce brands, you'll see like a classic sign up for our newsletter, get 10% off. And that's a tactic, but it may not actually be them utilizing a content strategy in its fullest. Maybe they could be using that as a full newsletter play. So yeah, I don't know. It depends.
Yeah. You know what I think will actually be more revelatory? Let's go through specific ICPs and what are some, recommendations you think are interesting because we're trying to serve founders here. So I'll tell you exactly who our ICP is. So let's say you have a B2C DeFi product. Talk to us about some of the marketing channels that you think are effective for a project like that so we can make it, the Jax protocol will be very similar to Aave.
Okay, awesome. B2C DeFi protocol. Um, Very classic case. We've had many of these at Hype, and I would say X is still the main stadium or arena where most people who already have wallets are looking for alpha, are looking for where they be staking or putting their money on in crypto and DeFi. That's where they're living. There are some sub channels coming up and sub clubs. You can find them on Lens or Forecaster or Workcast, some of these more decentralized socials. And then there's Reddit as well. But I would really say the bulk of the time should be spent on X. And then you can kind of experiment on these side channels, just understanding that they likely have smaller scale.
And then in terms of, let's say, X strategy, there's videos, there's live streaming, there's spaces, there's you can just do partnership announcements until you're blue in the face. Like, talk to us a little bit about like what are some of the more effective things you've seen for, let's say, this DeFi product that would be targeted towards retail investors.
Yeah, so something I want to talk through, and this is a workshop we recently did in-house with some of our junior marketers, is really differentiating what is the difference with strategy and tactics. And I think everything just listed, doing like a logo X logo announcement, doing X spaces, these are all tactics. And it's one small piece that makes up strategy. So what we would really need to understand first is what are we going to position them as? Why should people care? What are they doing? So what is this protocol? What can I do on it? How is it better, faster, cheaper, or more convenient than competitors? And from there, we can think about different strategies and tactics to do on X. That could include the types of comms that come from the founder versus the CTO versus the team. It could look like making an X community all about the latest developments in DeFi protocols or the latest in cross-chain swaps, if that's what they're about. So I think, yeah, really understanding the comm strategy and how you communicate it in different feature sets, different mediums on X specifically, always starts with understanding what the product is and how it's placed relative to its competitors.
Got it. So let's say, somebody's, Jax protocol is going to have to start working with Hype. And I come in the door and I'm like, I'm a handsome guy. I used to work at Google. I can build things, but I have no idea how to market. So what you guys would do, if I'm hearing right, is we would look at kind of the competitors in my space, try to find out like the benefits and the pains of the existing pains and then the benefits, and talk to me about how you guys would like construct, a go-to-market strategy or some kind of marketing strategy for, this beautiful protocol.
Yeah, so for Jax protocol, one, I would ask you a million questions like I'm doing now. But the timeline looks like Jax protocol comes through the door. We do a discovery, whole discovery section. Why do you believe you should exist? What are you doing? What is your purpose of building Jax protocol? Who do you think your competitors are? I'll likely also Google you. I'll check your community. I'll do an audit on your socials just to get an understanding of, does your perception of yourself align with the reality of what the community is seeing? And also me as a fresh user with fresh eyes, does it make sense to me what you're describing? I will also go through the flow myself. So I'll connect my wallet. I'll see what the UX and UI is like. I'll see how easy it is to swap, lend, bridge, whatever your protocol does. And because we have such a large subset of crypto native marketers, I'm like, at least for me, I spend way too much time on X. I don't know about you. But both me and our team, a lot of us are day in, day out doing crypto marketing. We're constantly looking at protocols and also testing things ourselves. We probably have some other competitors or protocols to benchmark against. We'll also ask you who are your partners and see if there is some way we can incorporate that into the go-to-market. I will say specifically at Hype, most clients come to us to make a really memorable campaign. That could be around like a TGE or a launch or something to do with a rebrand. But I want clients to leave feeling like, oh, Hype did that for us. And we just got X percent increase in mind share, X percent increase in users. So the go-to-market strategy would be, one, understanding what your product is. How does it stack up against your competitors? Usually there's a goal that you would have hired us for. So let's say that you have mainnet coming soon. We would then understand who your audience is. Likely there are subsets of people living on X and maybe a variety of other channels. And then we would create some type of viral mechanic campaign. That's what we've usually been doing in this last year to reach them and create some mind share and buzz from that.
And sorry, say the name of that campaign one more time. Viral something campaign?
Yeah, like a viral mechanic campaign. It's just a fancy way of saying like it is a campaign that we would design with intentionality that we want this to get shared.
Got it. And earlier you mentioned like, hey, when Jax comes in, they're going to look at the community. They're going to look at like your perception. You're going to walk through the entire flows. Talk to us a little bit about, because we see a lot of founders that haven't really built much of a personal brand. They might have come from like Google or Amazon. They're playing around with Web3 in their time. They're like, hey, I want to launch a company. Like what do you do when like a founder doesn't necessarily have a big social media? Do you think it has to be like from the founder, or can they just post from brand accounts? Talk to us a little bit about what you see there.
I would say that increasingly this year, we're seeing more importance of having a voice from the founder. Even more so if it's a project or company that not many people know about yet, mainly because there's two things I've noticed. One, the X algorithm tends to seem to give a bigger boost to personal accounts. And then the second piece is you can have a more human touch and take from your personal account. And it doesn't always need to be from the founder. It can be from a team member. It can be from the BD person, but it does help to have that additional firepower and amplification. So it's not necessarily a deal breaker, and it also depends on the stage, but it is something we would recommend. And the way that we would help you get started. So let's say Jax protocol, as we're doing your discovery, we're understanding why did you put time into this? So Jax, like, why did you leave Google to build your protocol? And really understanding and distilling your reason, your purpose, your why into some type of comm strategy for you as a founder. It might look slightly different than what would appear from the brand. We would really give you a starting point for that. My account is quite small. I've built it up this year. I have no strategy. It's just intuitively posting about marketing maybe once every 2 days. And I do see a difference with how it grows compared to the hype account. I also have seen very interesting correlations where when we encourage a founder to post a bit more on X, we see a direct correlation with their analytics graph compared to their brand analytics graph. And you can see that with the profile visits in your X analytics. So I am seeing these positive correlations, and I do think we're going to trend to a place where more and more, not just more founders, but I think you'll see more founders and their team and their community posting more on X just to infiltrate these channels with as much messaging as possible.
Yeah. And because, a lot of crypto Twitter, a lot of it is, for lack of a better term, shit posting and, talking about like the latest meme coins. But let's say, you're a founder, you're like, hey, I'm really passionate about intents and like solving, liquidity fragmentation, or like, does anyone care about that? Like, can I still post about that kind of stuff? Or
So if you're specifically asking about liquidity fragmentation, I think UX and interoperability, it's a whole issue many people are trying to solve to a point where that as a category has multiple subsets within it. There's like cross-chain liquidity getting fragmented. There's the fact that sometimes every time you start a account on a new DEX, you create a new wallet, and now you have multiple wallets. So yeah, I think there's so much to go into that there. If you were a founder building in that space, just to highlight all of the problems and drill it back to your why of why did you build a solution for it. I also have seen founders specifically start discourse with other people building in the space, whether it's, I have seen I'm sure you've seen this as well, where they can get a bit critical or extreme. Sometimes it's a bit more, a bit past my personal taste, but I think it's a great place to have discourse and discussions with other builders and also directly with users. And there's no better way to do it than from a personal account.
Absolutely. And earlier you mentioned, looking at what the community thinks of this person. And it seems like X, in my experience, is probably one of the last remaining truly social medias. Like a lot of stuff nowadays is just purely media. Like YouTube, you don't really have any relationship to your subscriber at all. Maybe Facebook is actually the last true social media, but it seems like X, you need to actually engage to get engagement to a degree. So what do you recommend? Like, do you think community is actually like at the heart of like Web3 marketing, or do you think it's something like, hey, you can just like build it and people will come? I often find it kind of odd that like people are so up and like so happy about a database. Like I've never seen people wearing MongoDB shirts everywhere.
I think the crux of community being the heart of crypto marketing, that's been something we've been saying for quite a long time now, to a point where even the definition of community seems to change. And Hype originally started in 2017 purely as a community focused agency. And since then we've expanded to all sorts of things to really deliver full service go to market. I will say it is part of crypto marketing, which you will see a lot, where before the product is even built or ready, you are already building a community or getting rallying for people to get excited. So there's usually phases, especially in blockchain, right? There's the devnet, testnet, and then mainnet. And each of those stages, you're looking to get more and more people excited about whatever you're building. So yes, I think community is really important. I don't think it's exclusive to crypto, actually. I think we're seeing it more and more in Web2 as well. Loyalty programs, for example, I know sometimes if we're too ingrained in Web3 marketing and we forget about the other world, we think that it's exclusive to us, but it's not. They're just derivatives of each other. But I will say, if you look at all crypto companies relative to non-crypto companies, most of us here are focused on building community and look at that as a metric.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. So let's say, Jax he's completely neglected his community. He's neglected his Twitter. Like, is there any like bootstrapping you guys help with them doing? Or you're like, hey, you guys just got to be like very active on Twitter. Like, what do you say to a founder that maybe hasn't really built up much of a community yet?
Yeah, and we've done this many times. So I know on our website, it looks like there's a ton of big logos, but there are a lot of protocols where they started from zero. I think Athena is a good one to mention. When we worked with them, they had 0 followers. The first teaser video on Twitter got them 5K, and then I think they had a fundraise announcement that got them to about 10,000. I think bootstrapping and doing things that don't scale is really the way to go in crypto. And that's why you see so many BD roles. These are essentially roles where it's people connecting with each other, whether that's at events or online. Specifically, what we would do is we would recommend a few things. Number one, we want to understand who is everybody on your team? Do they have a presence? Oftentimes they don't, sometimes they do. Also, who are your partners? Essentially, we want to create a list of people that can rally and get as much initial amplification. And I would say that being active on socials is part of the bootstrapping, and it's part of the doing things that don't scale in the very beginning. I don't think X is necessarily a community, but it is a way you can create one-to-one connections with your audience, and you can eventually build community from X. So you can funnel those people into a diehard community.
Yeah, you mentioned the Athena example. Could you talk to us a little bit about some of the campaigns you guys have done that have been particularly successful? Because I think that will help listeners kind of understand the like marketing flow of creating a campaign.
Yeah, so first I'd love to talk through just how much crypto marketing changes, because my first year here in 2021, it was so much ecosystem marketing. So we worked with Near, for example, Cello, and ecosystem marketing is interesting because it's B2B to C, meaning you're trying to attract developers who are building apps to attract consumers, at the same time also attracting retail and consumers via this whole vision of your ecosystem and your monolithic blockchain. And since then, the tech has changed so much where we have modularity now. There's layer twos and some layer threes. I would say last year, where the market sentiment was a bit lower, there was a lot more infrastructure projects. And now infrastructure as a category has expanded, mainly because of all the fragmentation and UX issues. And this year, specifically Q1, there were so many airdrop campaigns, right? I think that has been a common question about how do I feel about questing or airdrop farming. There was a lot of TGEs. So it has changed a lot. I think a few campaigns that are interesting to share. So Athena is one. Maybe some ingredients I can share on what made that successful is it was really right place, right time. They came out around the LST narrative being really strong. And there was a really cool teaser video. They had some amazing partners lined up. Dragonfly was the lead there. I think we did an amazing job with the creative campaign, and we also built a questing campaign around it. And since then, I think they were also kind of they set the forefront for all the points campaigns you saw in Q1 and Q2 this year. Some other campaigns that we ran would be Argon Layer, Babylon, which is a L2 on Bitcoin. And then earlier this year, we just dropped a case study on Optimism Superfest. You can actually see the full results of that online as well.
Yeah, you guys have some incredible case studies. It makes me be like, I got to work harder. Talk to us a little bit about, because I know you've done a lot of posting recently, and this is what really caught my attention, is you were talking about like meta ads. And I know, ads are something I've talked to many people that they're kind of bearish on ads in terms of like crypto marketing. One, because it's kind of gated. Talk to us a little bit about how you've seen people using like ads, things like short form, like different kinds of creatives.
Yeah, so first let me make the differentiation of ads versus short form content. I recently have dove into both. Short form content being organic content posted on Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram, and then meta ads and just paid ads in general. You know, most of my career, all 8 years, I've been running paid ads. I still run paid ads to this day for some SaaS companies, mainly to dip my toe and keep myself sharp in the post product market fit world and always understand what is happening there so I don't lose sanity, I guess, in the Wild West here of crypto. So, you know, in 2021, I joined Hype building the paid ads department. And back then we did run paid ads. We ran about 3 to 4 million across all sorts of placements, including Web3 placements. We used some of the decentralized ad networks. We also did wallet targeting. We also did the classics, Google, Meta, YouTube. There's probably a few I'm missing here. And my general sentiment is very bearish on it right now. I don't think it is a net good for your brand, mainly because of this meta that it's all about community building and incentivizing people who are using your product and excited about it by not incentivizing them directly and bypassing it through a third party, and also showing up alongside many other scams. I don't think it gives you the best look or gives the brand the best authority it can. Recently, I explored the ads being ran on Meta because I was curious what is happening there. And I went down this whole rabbit hole of meme coins. There was a lot of Forex scams. There was a lot of the tap to earn ads, and there was a lot of Telegram pumping groups. And Meta's algorithm in particular, from a paid ad standpoint, is really powerful. So if you just go to one meme coin page, you're going to start seeing all of these ads, which means that as you start to click on more and more crypto ads, you'll see more and more other crypto ads. And I think that really opened my eyes to, okay, this is what people who are not day in, day out on crypto Twitter, this is what they're seeing. And it's not the best representation of the tech being built in the space. It also still creates this perception that crypto is still a speculative instrument, which it is in many cases. It truly is. I think what does have product market fit is stable coins, for example. However, they're not seeing the whole other side that we see on crypto Twitter. So yeah, I think my long answer short is I wouldn't necessarily recommend running paid ads. If you have a business model where you can measure CAC, retention, LTV, and that could be the case in crypto if you're a DEX, if you're selling hard wallets, if you are a game and you need to acquire new players, ads could make sense. But in most cases, I would advise against it. The short form content is interesting as well, because recently I've noticed more and more short form video content in portrait ratio. So when it's vertical placed on Twitter. And I was really curious to see how does this look across TikTok and Instagram. And my findings so far are if you're posting crypto Twitter or crypto content in short form vertical format videos on Twitter, you're going to get more views than you will on Instagram. And on Instagram, you'll get more views than on TikTok. There are some cases on TikTok where they do go viral. It's usually around airdrop farming or what to invest in. So it's still the speculation. But I found that really interesting that it seems the algorithm on these platforms are not really incentivizing blockchain or crypto content outside of the financial speculation.
Yeah, well, that to me makes a lot of sense. I wonder if you have any different perspective on something like I think it was Blockworks, or there was a company I was listening to. This was months ago, and they were talking about how they used LinkedIn ads quite effectively if they were selling B2B. And I guess yes, if you're mostly focused on getting consumers, then probably like Meta ads or Twitter ads. But have you looked at any of the like B2B use cases for running ads?
Yeah, we actually did run LinkedIn ads back in 2021 as well. The interesting learnings about that is I think this is also not just related to crypto, but Web2 as well, Web2 B2B. There always is that consensus that LinkedIn for B2B paid ads is the place to go. What we learned was impressions and CAC tends to be a lot higher. You need to get super, super targeted and micro targeted on LinkedIn, where on Meta, on Google, and TikTok, going it broad as possible is better. I also think specifically for B2B, if you're a growth tool, for example, LinkedIn could make sense. But if you're an ecosystem trying to attract developers, it maybe not won't make as much sense. To be fair, I haven't done a lot of recent testing on things like LinkedIn messages or cold outbound. So I'm not sure how those numbers are coming out. But yeah, from what I remember testing, it is a better channel for B2B. However, for most ecosystems, I wouldn't recommend it right now.
Yeah, and I know you've been incredibly generous for your time, so we'll have to speed through these final questions. But I wanted to talk to you a little bit about like building a marketing team, because this is something that we talk with a lot of founders, and marketing is always one of their biggest pain points. So, what are some of the things you recommend when a founder's looking to build a marketing team, or should they just be like, hey, I'm just going to trust the agencies, I'm going to focus on building?
So if you were, so let's say it's Jax Protocol and I'm just talking to you as a friend and you're building your company up and you're starting from zero, I would say always hire a marketing generalist if you're not doing it yourself in the very big beginning. I strongly believe in doing things that don't scale and being as lean as possible. Even with my own business ventures, I've always been really conservative, and especially being a media buyer as well. You want to be as lean as possible with budget because you are looking for that ROI or ROAS. So I would always say step one is put your idea out there in the world, whether that's from your personal account or the brand account, see if there is any reception. Your very first marketing hire ideally should be a marketing generalist, somebody that can act as an extension, understand the tactics, channels, how to best position. And as you start to scale, and if you have the capital, then it could make sense to go to an agency like ours. I would say something that Hype has that is a huge benefit is we have a lot of manpower and resourcing. We have about 90 people on our team, and this is one of the bigger agencies I've worked at. This is actually a nuance that I'd like to explain too about crypto marketing versus non-crypto marketing is in the past. So the last two agencies I worked at outside of Hype and outside of Web3, in a post PMF world, you usually are hiring an agency because you know exactly what you need. It's like, okay, we need to do a rebrand, or all right, we want to do email marketing, or we want to do paid ads. And there is a very specialized agency for that. Where in crypto, there is no playbook, and there's so much resourcing you need to manage the community. So 24/7 moderation, someone to build out the campaigns, somebody to manage the socials and all the different channels that implies, then also creative. On top of that, like strategy, how do you piece all of that together? So it does take a lot of bandwidth and resourcing. But I would say the very first marketing hire should be a marketing generalist before you start to hire specialists. And as you scale, it could make sense to have a marketing agency act on behalf of your in-house team, especially because if they're working only on crypto projects, they will understand the space and nuance a bit more deeply than you might. And that will free you up from time spent on building your business.
Now you mentioned generalist. Are there specific skills they should look out for? Like, yeah, is it like it doesn't seem like SEO is that popular. I know we were talking off camera on that. Like, what kind of skills, if you're looking to hire, should they look for? Is it like Twitter writing? Is it?
Yeah, I would say so specifically for crypto marketing and your first crypto marketing hire. The reason why I specify this is because I've done a lot of hiring this year. It's so important to find someone that loves crypto or is active in the channels that you're going to play in. So what I would say at Hype is about 3 years ago, it was a lot more difficult to find crypto marketing talent. And in the last 3 years, there's more ecosystems that have grown, more protocols that have grown. So now you have a subset of people that have both formal marketing experience and love crypto, where in the past it was purely just crypto enthusiasts, crypto degens who you might need to teach some of the marketing fundamentals too. I will say that if you are a DeFi protocol, no matter what, you need to have somebody that is crypto native, meaning somebody that is active on CryptoX, active in some communities, has experience with wallets, has experience swapping. And as a generalist, it doesn't mean that they need to be a specialist in paid ads or SEO or email marketing, but they understand the general framework of who am I trying to target? How do I reach them? How do I strategize a campaign to get to them? And ideally somebody that is both open-minded and curious, as well as experimental. I think those are the main traits I would look for. And your first hire should be in the trenches. I think actually all of your marketing hires should be in the trenches because the space is changing so much. So even me, I'm often active on X. I'm in campaigns. I'm touching buttons. I have a team I work with, but I think it's so important to stay agile and up to date with what is happening, or else the marketing metas and the marketing tactics in this space change so fast. If you're not online for 3 months, it's going to be a completely different playbook.
Absolutely. And one thing we were talking about off camera, and I wanted to bring it back up, is it seems like every crypto project has a peculiar domain name, like a .finance, a .fi, .pe. Talk to us a little bit about, like, from what I knew, this was something that hurt SEO. Is SEO not a priority, or do we not think that like the extensions on the domain names really matter all that much these days?
I will say from the projects we've worked with, SEO is not typically a priority. I do think as you become more mature, it should become more of a priority because SEO can bring so much organic results. I've seen it multiple times outside of the crypto world. But usually early stage in crypto, your pre-product market fit, your positioning is constantly changing because the teams that you're building against are also shipping new features and you're trying to catch up and stay competitive. Specifically to our domain, our CEO, Jake, loves collecting domains. I think that's a side hobby he has outside of crypto. And I think he's been eyeing the hy.pe domain for a long time. We definitely don't do anything to optimize our SEO. Maybe we should start. I'll have a deeper think about that, but that's the history of where that domain came from.
Yeah, one reason I got kind of blackpilled, maybe this was a few weeks ago, when I was actually looking at the search volume for something like liquid restaking or liquid staking. I was like, holy heck, I think this is the exact reason why people don't care about SEO, because it's not something that people naturally search for. Like no one's thinking like, hey, how can I take this derivative and put it into a new derivative and get more derivatives?
Yeah, I think it's an awareness thing, right? The only people that know about this are searching on it on Twitter. There will be some there will be some outliers, but I think that conversation on liquid restaking or data availability layers or AVS, it's living on Twitter.
Yeah, 100%. Well, you've been incredibly generous with your time. So finally, where can people find you on X, and where can they find your agency?
Hype, our domain is hy.pe. And then I'm Emily X Lai. That's my first name, EMILY, XLAI on Twitter or X.
Awesome. Well, everyone go get involved with the agency and go take a look at Emily's profile. I'm a big fan of what she's been posting.